In grade 7, I brought this sticky rice that was wrapped in banana leaf that one time for lunch. And the girl that was sitting next to me kept glancing at it. I'm not sure for what reason. She may be thinking, ew, that's gross, or she might be thinking, it looks pretty interesting. But she never had the courage to question me. And if she did, and if we did get into a conversation, she might have found out that I was actually born on a tropical refugee camp along the border of Thailand in 1997. When you hear a child such as me spending the first decade of my life in the refugee camp, what kind of thoughts come to your mind, and what kind of feelings do you have towards me? It may surprise you, though, that this quote seems very true to me. It says, "To be called a refugee is the opposite of an insult. It is a badge of strength, courage, and victory." And for me, it was a badge of strength, courage, and victory. My family did not have much growing up in the refugee camp, but I was very, very happy, like truly happy, like those kids in the slides. I call my childhood golden because we grew up playing out in the golden sun every single day, and we make use of all the little materials we have. Elastic, mud, leaves, everything. And honestly, that was the most fun I had throughout my life. Maybe that was because I was a kid. It was just about a temporary home, though, which soon ended. In 2007, our family was resettled into Canada with many other refugees' families. And we didn't speak any English. I didn't know how I existed. All I know was yes or no, I don't know, and toilet. That was about it. It was hard. And I remember trying to understand the culture as a young newcomer. There were a lot of things that were new to me. For example, back home where I came from, the student remained quiet throughout the whole lesson. But here, there's more interaction between the students and the teacher. And I was also so afraid to raise my hand up all the time. And half of that was because of the language barriers, that I would embarrass myself. But then, what if the teacher didn't smile at me? Was it because I did something wrong? Like, there's always constant battles going through my head. And it took me 6 to 7 years. 6 to 7 solid years to be able to raise my hand up in class and ask my teachers for help, and to be able to start doing my homework by myself. And throughout those 6 and 7 years, I did the best I could to gather the courage to educate people I came across about my culture, the Korean people, by using my own experiences and my own story. And what I found is that as soon as people find out that I am a refugee, they automatically sum up a story in their head about who I am and what my story should sound like. And most of the time, I would get words like, "I'm sorry," or "I'm so glad you're here in Canada." So after many years of those reactions and many years of those comments and words, I was convinced that my life was hard, and I have led a life that was only possible in the movie for most of the people here in Canada. So I began to focus on the negative side of my life. And most of the time, I would talk about how hard it is there, how poor we were, and how I pitied the rest of the population still stuck there. And it would be a very rare case when I was fortunate enough to run into somebody who would be curious enough and who would be brave enough to ask me, "What have you learned as a refugee? How did that impact you positively?" After all, I am who I am because of my experiences and the challenges I have faced, and I am here today to say that I was a refugee, and that only made me stronger. The refugee experience taught me to be patient. It taught me to appreciate the things I have, and to truly earn the things you have to work hard to earn for the things you want. I know that multiculturalism in Canada is a very important value. But I know that immigrants and refugee youth feel very lonely, isolated, and a lot of time misunderstood. And forget about refugees and immigrants for a second, because I know that Canadians themselves feel very lonely and isolated a lot of times. But we like to sugarcoat that, and we like to pretend everything is perfect. And we like to say we embrace diversity, when we don't even know what diversity really is. And let me give you an example. This will likely happen if I get into a conversation with a stranger. Let's say I introduce myself as a Japanese. Throughout the conversation, they will likely talk about, "Oh yeah, I love sushi." I do, I know. And let's say I introduce myself as an Indian. They will likely talk about butter chicken maybe, or Bollywood music and films. And I've done this just to get by. So you see where I'm going with this? So do us Canadians really know what the value of diversity is after all? And you know what's funny is that The butter chicken we like and the sushi we may love is nothing compared to what you'll get to taste in India or in Japan, because sadly it is the edited version for Canadians. So that proves to me we don't know what diversity is. And my experience taught me that it is more than food and clothes when it comes to multiculturalism. It is beyond the appearances. We have to get to know each other on a deeper level. We have to really live together in a community. We have to work together. We have to fill in those missing pieces, those personal connections. We have to bond. We have to dig deeper into it together. And we really have to appreciate our differences. And we really need to embrace that and not just sugarcoat it and say, yes, we embrace diversity. So it works both ways. Now I have some Muslim friends who don't wear hijab. And I would ask them why. Like, why don't you wear one? And they would tell me it is by choice. Not everybody have to wear one. So what differences does it make after I asked that question? Well, my mind was clear. The next time I ran into a Muslim woman without hijab, I could focus on the better things about them. I could look for the similarities we have, and we could connect better. We can talk about things that are important instead of wondering about that hijab. So from that, I began to ask people questions, whoever I ran into. I asked about their family, their occupation, their age, their interests, and so on. And I know some people just find it weird, which makes me understand why people would ask those questions. But I can tell you that I've gained more friends than I've lost from all those questions. And some of those friendships are deep. They last a lifetime. And I've even made friends with some people that think, that's weird, why are you asking me all those questions? But then they ended up being my best friend because of those questions. And why would we ask those questions? Are we afraid of the reaction, the embarrassment, or the unknown? And I know that it probably wouldn't come naturally. So we have to work on it at a younger age. We have to teach the children that it is okay to ask those personal questions, that it is okay to get to know each other on a deeper level, and by getting to know each other on a deeper level, we can work together automatically better. And we have to teach them to overcome peer pressure, because I know that peer pressure plays a lot in this. And we have to teach them to really accept differences and to embrace it, because we all have a lot to learn from each other. So when I think back to my 13-year-old self sitting at that desk, eating the food, the lunch that people may think it's weird, my hope is that not another child will have to go through that. Not another child have to sit there eating their lunch thinking, why is she looking at me like that? Instead, they would have a conversation that would lead to finding out similarities about them, that would educate each other about their backgrounds, where they come from, what they can teach each other. So I would like to ask all of you to gather up the courage to be curious and to start asking questions, and just don't have a story summed up in your head about somebody when you get to know them. Thank you.